Cover star Camila Cabello.
Hi everyone, welcome to Glamour's Global Self-Care Sunday event. I am Caitlin Brody, I'm Glamour's Entertainment Director, and I am thrilled to welcome global superstar Camila Cabello.
Oh, thank
you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So when you're at the top of your profession like Camila is and have tons of followers, she still is able to prioritize her mental health, which is not easy. So what does self-care look like to you?
Self-care to me looks like, you know, obviously I'm in a very privileged position to be able to have some say over my work-life balance. So that's really important to me. Making sure that I have at least a day off a week. That's kind of like my new rule. That really helps me because it helps me to not feel burnt out and exhausted. I also feel like, you know, trying to eat healthy and exercise is important to me, and therapy is really important to me too.
Is therapy something new that you started, or is that something you've been doing for a while?
I've been doing that for probably like 3 years, and it took me kind of a couple of different people that were amazing in their own way, but took me trying kind of different therapists to find one that really kind of helped me and the way my brain works. So it's been a few months working with a therapist that has really, really helped me. So I try to do a weekly session.
What is the most important lesson you feel like the past 2 years have taught you?
The most important lesson the past 2 years have taught me is, you know, I think when we kind of internalize the kind of capitalist ideals, it can be just feel like it's hustle culture and grinding and this and that, and I feel like it's just easy to get really burnt out and, you know, and forget that you're a human and not just a machine.
Right.
So I think it's important to me to have time where I'm doing nothing, and it's leisure time, and it's family and friends and relationships, and just prioritizing that, you know, and not burning myself out.
I know for me, sometimes it can be hard to say no and to prioritize my mental health. Is that something that's been hard for you, or have you learned how to say no and given yourself that space?
Yeah, I think that before, it's almost it's not even that sometimes you feel like you can't say no. Sometimes it's that you feel like you can't say no because people are going to think that you don't work hard enough, that you don't care enough, that it's not important to you, whatever. And well, for that, I've learned that nobody really knows how you're feeling and your body's feeling but you. And sometimes I find that I'm dang, I'm so mad that, this is happening, and they don't know that this really affects me, and I'm exhausted and I'm burnt out, and I'm well, they're not mind readers. You kind of have to take responsibility for your life, and if you don't want to do something, you just don't do it, you know? So that's something I've learned in the past couple of years. Also, I think there is that kind of FOMO thing sometimes
right.
too, where you're you have this fear of missing out, and I've learned that, you know, I try to, as much as possible, be and obviously you can't do this all the time, but I do feel if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Nice, I love that.
I definitely feel when it comes to saying no also, I've learned the importance of practicing boundaries, and I think that that's something that even the word was something that was not said a lot growing up, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, so it wasn't something that, you know, I was kind of aware of until I started doing therapy and learning about those things. And it can be hard because you feel bad, you feel it's not, you know, you feel you're not being nice. Something also that somebody told me once is there's a difference between being nice and being kind. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that, you know, sometimes not setting those boundaries and having resentment towards certain people is actually the worst thing you could do for friendships, relationships, because you're not actually being your authentic self. So I think putting boundaries is something that's been pretty life-changing for me, for sure.
You spoke last year on World Mental Health Day about your journey with mental health and self-care. Exercising every day, doing cold water therapy, learning about the brain, and more. Is this something that you've come to more recently?
Yeah, I think that probably a couple of years ago when you know, I was kind of like forced to stop working because of everything that happened. I was just feeling really burnt out and just like in a bad kind of mental space. So I tried a lot of different things. So cold water therapy isn't something that I really do every day anymore because it's like uncomfortable and terrible.
So is it like
I mean,
cryo?
It's amazing, but it's like, you know, like there's cold showers, cryo, ice baths, like stuff like that, which I'll do every once in a while, but I don't like do it every day, even though I know it's amazing and it did make me feel really good. But I think like mostly for me, it's exercise makes me feel really good, and therapy and time off. Those are probably the biggest like 3 things for me. And those definitely, when I stay on top of that, that makes a really big difference.
How do you like to spend a day off? And is there anything that you put on your calendar like this is a non-negotiable, this is my time?
I like to spend my day off. I definitely prioritize like friendships and relationships. Sometimes I actually can be kind of tired, and sometimes I'm like, no, I don't really want to hang out with anybody, especially new people today. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? This is part of me, like building relationships and connections, and this is going to be good for me. But most of the time, I really just like to read. I like to watch Pose on Netflix lately. That's a big one for me. I definitely like spending time in nature. That's probably like my biggest thing that I like to do in time off, whether it's going to a park if I'm in the city or going on a long hike. I really like doing that. And yeah, lately, which is a new thing, I feel like the 1 day off a week is pretty non-negotiable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, most of us have 2. Your 1 has to be very precious.
Yes, my 1, I'm like, you can't, I gotta have my 1.
Yeah. We all know social media plays a big role in our mental health, for better or worse. What do you feel your relationship is with it?
I feel like it's pretty, like, it's complex, but I think it's probably more healthy than unhealthy. I feel like from a really young age, I was like 15 and I searched up my name on Twitter and like just cried so much, and I was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. So I've literally never done that again.
Wow.
Like I'm not like looking at myself on social media or what people are saying about me. So, because I feel like that's like, that can really mess you up. So I don't do that, which I feel like is really huge. I think it's complex in the sense that I have people that I love that I follow on Instagram, and sometimes I start to compare myself, especially I think like body image is a big thing.
Right.
I start to have more and more thoughts like, oh, like I don't like how I look, oh, my body, whatever. So it's funny, like even yesterday I read this quote that was like, teenagers experience way more kind of mental health problems like depression and anxiety because they go on Instagram a lot more. And I was like, oh, okay, I've experienced this like in my own, like lately I've been like, oh, I'm having a lot of body image thoughts, and I realize it's because I'm spending so much time on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, okay, I can see this showing up in my life when I'm not on Instagram, so I'm gonna just like chill and not be on it because I can feel it affecting me. So it's complex. Like I think it's like, sometimes I spend a lot of time on there and I'm like, this is really fun. And then I'm like, oh, it's affecting me. I'm gonna take a step back. So it's kind of like in flux.
Right. I can relate to that for sure. Yeah. Was there a specific turning point for you when you started to prioritize your mental health?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the turning point was like, just like a mental breakdown.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it. Yeah, I was just like, I don't know if this is the case for everybody, but I feel like it makes sense that, you know, when I hit was like highest peak of like anxiety, and like I feel like probably like having, I don't know, like a lot of anxiety. I don't want to say like depression, but I think like it hit a point where I was just like, oh my God, like this is really like hard to experience every day. So I think like when I started feeling those feelings of like helplessness and like those like terrible feelings, I was like, okay, yeah, I really need to like, you know, do therapy more, and I need to figure out what's not working because this sucks. And I really feel like I changed a lot about my life since that moment. That was probably a couple years ago, like before the pandemic. And then I think, after and during, I changed a lot about my life, and now I'm doing way better.
Was that change something that you were able to do yourself, or did you have like external friends or family or relationships that helped you to have that pivot?
Yeah, I mean, I think that externally, my friends and family were like my mom, like really, like was like, I think that working with this therapist would be really, really good for you. And I was like, no, I don't know, whatever. And so then I started working with them, and that like really, really helped me. So I think it was just like the support of like, hey, maybe what you're doing so far is not really like benefiting you. I was also like obsessively reading self-help books, like just like, you know what I mean? And it was just not the way. It was more, I think, like, you know, finding the right therapist, and also just like lifestyle stuff.
I know a lot of people feel that they don't have the time for therapy, and clearly you are a very, very busy human being. And I'm wondering, since you're able to make the time, is it something that your schedule, like you make shifts in your schedule for, or you move it around and that it's just something that's really important for you, or you know, do you miss it sometimes? Like, how does that work for you?
I mean, my text chain with my therapist is just like a mess, because I'll be like, I'm so sorry, I can't do today, can we do tomorrow?
Right.
And so there's that, and also I do shift my schedule for that. Like sometimes I'm just like, can we move it after? Because from 11 to 12, like I've done therapy like in a room, in a rehearsal space, and been like 5 to 6, guys, sorry, I'm out. And then I'll go into a little room and just be like, hey. No, not like that. I'll be like, hey. Well, it depends on the day.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely think it's like about finding time for it. And I don't like, you know, there's some people in my life, like especially family members, that are like, I don't need it. And I'm like, I think there's always something to learn, you know, like maybe you're like really happy in your life, and maybe you don't need it, but I don't know, because I've obviously like have struggled with anxiety for like a few years, so I feel like needed it.
Right. What makes you happiest in life?
I think what makes me happiest in life is, I think, like a good balance. I feel like my relationships are really important to me. Time in nature makes me really, really happy. Being creative makes me really happy. And I think it's just like the balance of, I think that more things, cooking makes me really happy. Like, I think that something that I really applied in the past couple of years, I think my life really expanded. Like, I was just like, what are my hobbies? What do I like to do? Okay, I like to cook. I like to read. I like this poetry podcast. I like this podcast. You know, I want to go on more hikes. I want to, you know, I think that it's definitely like, as much as you can, I think balance makes me happy. And I think just connection is like the biggest thing, connection between me and other people. And yeah, that feeling of like belonging, I feel like is A1.
Well, I know we're both reading the new Sally Rooney book, but
Yeah.
What do you like to cook?
Ooh, I love to make pasta.
Nice. Any
I
specific?
made a like broccoli walnut pesto
yum.
pasta one time.
That
It
sounds
was
delicious.
really good.
Yum.
Yeah, it was fire.
What would you say is the best self-care advice you could give others?
I think that speaking your truth is really important, and like destigmatizing mental health is really important. Like, the more that I've been kind of truthful and open and vulnerable about what my experiences have been and what they are, like on a day-to-day basis, that's like the most healing thing in the world. I think finding even one person who you could be like, I felt like really like anxious last night, or like whatever those things are. I keep comparing myself to, you know, this person on social media. Like, I think that makes you feel like heard and seen, and that's like probably the best thing you could do for your mental health.
That's wonderful. Well, Camila, thank you so much for being a part of Glamour's Self-Care Sunday event. We're so happy to have you, and yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
awesome.